I'm going to move on to our next speaker. He will be sharing on the soul of diplomacy, soft power 2.0, and the index era. Jean-Pierre Mugenga is a leadership strategist specializing in organizational trust, cultural intelligence, and the human dynamics shaping modern nations. As the founder and director of Culture and Clarity Limited, he advises senior leaders across government, healthcare, technology on building the emotional infrastructure needed to navigate an increasingly complex world. His expertise is in cross-cultural communication and inclusive leadership and informs his contribution to the evolving global protocol frontier, where he highlights cultural intelligence as a strategic asset for strengthening collaboration and bridging diversity gaps. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite upstage Jean-Pierre Mugenga.
Thank you very much, Em. Thank you. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are joining us from. I would just share the slide. I don't know if I can do that quickly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good afternoon or good morning again, depending on where you're joining us from. Excellencies, ambassadors, and fellow architects of the global stage. We often say we live in a connected world. We point to our high-speed internet, our instant translation tools, our 24-hour news cycles. We celebrate the speed, the access, the noise. But let me ask you something, not as diplomats, but as human beings. Are we truly connected? Or are we simply crowded? Because connection is not proximity. Connection is not bandwidth. Connection is not the number of cables under the ocean. Connection is the ability to see another person's dignity without needing to agree with their worldview. Connection is the ability to listen without preparing for your rebuttal. Connection is the courage to say, teach me how to understand you. And in my work with culture and clarity, I have seen how fragile that connection can be. I have seen brilliant policies collapse because of a 5-cent mistake. I have seen billion-dollar trade deals dissolve because someone pressed the wrong person in the wrong seat. I have seen peace talks freeze, not because of ideology, but because one side felt unseen. Diplomacy does not fail because of big things. Diplomacy fails because of small things that were never understood. And that, distinguished colleagues, is why we are here. Today, we launched the Protocol Practice Index, the PPI. On the surface, it looks like data, a dashboard, a measurement tool. But beneath the surface, the PPI is something far more profound. It is the first global heartbeat of a new diplomatic era. We are moving from protocol as ceremony to protocol as strategy. From choreography to intelligence. From symbolism to substance. This is the moment. This is the moment where diplomacy stops being a performance and becomes a practice. Welcome to Soft Power 2.0. Not the power of the loudest voice, but the power of the most attuned spirit. To understand where we're going, we first need to understand where we've been. Soft Power 1.0 was branding. A nation essentially saying, look how great we are. It was a monologue. In that earlier era, soft power behaved like a lighthouse. A nation stood tall, shining its light outward, hoping that others would admire its films, its food, its values. It was a one-way signal. Here we are, come to us. But in the index era, Soft Power 2.0 is no longer a lighthouse. Soft Power 2.0 is a bridge. And a bridge is a very different thing. A bridge requires two sides. A bridge requires engineering. A bridge must account for wind, tide, weight, and weather. That engineering is cultural intelligence. Which brings us to the heart of this evolution. Soft Power 2.0 is building. It is a dialogue. It is the bridge. And here's the thing about bridges. A bridge doesn't care how tall it is. A bridge doesn't care how beautiful it looks in photographs. A bridge only cares about one question. Does it reach the other side? Soft Power 2.0 is not about how brightly you shine. It's about how effectively you connect. And in this index era, your score will no longer be or depend on how well you follow your own rules. It will depend on how well you adapt to the rules of others. This is cultural intelligence in action. Think of cultural intelligence as the common sense of the global citizen. If you visit a friend's home and they remove their shoes, you don't debate the physics of that. You take off your shoes. That is CQ in its simplest form. Now imagine scaling that instinct, that humility, that adaptability to a summit of 60 nations. That is the frontier we stand on today. And the PPI is the compass that will guide us across it. To drive the index era, we need an engine. I call it the 4 gears of cultural intelligence. And like any engine, if one gear fails, the whole system struggles. Gear number 1, self-awareness. Self-awareness is the mirror we hold to ourselves. It is recognizing that we all see the world through our cultural lenses. And those lenses shape our assumptions, our reactions, and even our definition of respect. Before you can lead others, you must understand your own default settings. Some of us are time-focused. If you're on time, you're already late. Others are people-focused. The meeting starts when the relationship is ready. Some cultures value directness. Others value harmony. Some cultures say what they mean. Others mean what they don't say. The mirror reminds us that our way is simply one way. And that is uncomfortable because the mirror forces us to confront our biases, our habits, our assumptions. But without the mirror, diplomacy becomes projection instead of connection. Gear number 2, knowledge. Knowledge is the map. It is understanding the terrain, norms, values, communication styles, taboos, and expectations. A map doesn't tell you where to go, but it sure prevents you from walking into a swamp you didn't know was there. In diplomacy, the map is understanding high context versus low context cultures. It is knowing that in some cultures, the word no is considered violent act. So people say maybe, or we will try, or that will be difficult. It is knowing that silence can mean respect in one culture and disagreement in another. It is knowing that hierarchy is sacred in some nations and negotiable in others. The map prevents us from getting lost. Gear number 3, strategy. Strategy is the steering wheel. It allows us to adjust in real time, to read the room, shift tone, adapt protocol, and respond with cultural agility. It is the ability to sit in a room, feel the energy shift, and pivot. It is the metacognition of diplomacy. Thinking about interaction while the interaction is happening. It is the ability to say, the room is tense. Let me slow down. Or, they are uncomfortable. Let me soften my tone. Or, this is not the moment for logic. This is the moment for empathy. The steering wheel keeps us from crashing. Action. Gear number 4. In diplomacy and protocol, cultural intelligence is not theoretical. It is the muscle. It is the difference between a ceremony that lands and one that offends, between a negotiation that builds rapport and one that collapses, between a relationship that endures and one that fractures quietly over time. Protocol is the bridge. Cultural intelligence is the reinforcement that keeps it from cracking under pressure. Can you adjust your tone? Can you soften your body language? Can you deliver a difficult message in a way that honors your host culture? The muscle is where diplomacy becomes real. Because diplomacy is not what you know. Diplomacy is what you do with what you know. Let me take you to a moment I call the 14-second miracle. A high revelry that was visiting a nation marked by deep historical trauma. The atmosphere was tense. Protocol demanded a rigid formal greeting. Instead, this leader spent 3 weeks learning 2 sentences in the local language. A language that almost never echoes in diplomatic halls, but carry the dignity of a nation in every syllable. He stumbled, his accent was imperfect, but for 14 seconds, the room fell silent. Then a minister on the other side slowly rose and nodded. The ice didn't melt, it evaporated. Negotiations expected to last days concluded in hours. He didn't use the rules, he used the heart. Now, contrast that with another delegation, one that gifted a gold-plated clock to a partner in East Asia. In the West, a clock says, our time is precious. In host culture, giving a clock sounds like attending a funeral. He didn't give a gift. They didn't give a gift. They gave an insult. Months of work gone. This is why the PPI matters. It measures the things that actually move the needle. Respect, awareness, adaptability. Distinguished colleagues, look at your hands. These hands sign treaties. They clap for speeches. They shake the hands of allies and adversaries. But if these hands are not guided by a culturally intelligent heart, they are merely performing a play. The world in 2026 stands at crossroad. We can choose the path of old protocol, wars, rigidity, ceremony without soul, or we can choose the path of the index era, bridges, clarity, and connection. Soft power tool is your superpower. The PPI is your compass. But you are the bridge builders. Do not leave this summit with only a note full of ideas. Leave with a heart full of curiosity. The next time someone frustrates you, don't ask, what is wrong with them? Ask, what is my mirror missing? If we do this, if we commit to this, we will not simply shape policies, we will shape history. We will build a world where protocol is not a set of rules, but a universal language of respect. My name is Jean-Pierre Mugenga. I believe in a world of culture and clarity. And I believe the leaders in this room are the ones who will build it. Thank you for listening.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. What can I say? What can I say? There's so much loaded in your presentation. And the way you bridged it with the protocol practice index. I mean, the few things that stood out to me, and I'll probably, when you compared protocol as the bridge and not the whatever, it's such a, I've written so much, I don't even know what to say, from ceremony to being connected and allowing ourselves to be the most attuned spirited person in the room and allowing the bridge to not just be the bridge but have an engineering wing to it, engineering side to it, and using that as cultural intelligence for what we do. I don't know. It's so loaded. I don't know. Self-awareness, the knowledge map, strategy, all those things, and cultural. One thing that you said is that cultural intelligence is not the what we learn, but it's the ability to build rapport, and it's the protocol.
I can't hear you. I don't know if you're still. I think we lost connection.
Also,
yes. Okay, she's back.
must be, looked to adopt whatever we do. Soft power is not superpower, and PPI is our compass. Protocol is a language of respect. A lot of things that you said, that's just mind-blowing. Actually, I will need this presentation to go over and over again to build my PPI and cultural intelligence. Honestly, I'd love to have it. So thank you so much for that wonderful presentation there. Agnes, is there anything you want to add?
Well, as you were, talking about it, it sounded even poetic, the way you
I
described how
know.
amazing it was, and
Yeah.
for sure, all the presentations so far have been amazing. It just reminded me of someone's recommendation about a poetic book by Kahil Gibran, The Prophet, and he stated, "From every page I could quote, So this is something that I was reminded by your comments, and I truly appreciate it. So thank you very much, Anne. And I